We played through every single WWE 2K game to find out the worst DLC that each game offered. From overly expensive to awful inclusions, you'll see it all as we go through WWE 2K14 all the way up until WWE 2K24. So with that being said, let's go all the way back to WWE 2K14's DLC offerings. But first, quickly, before we get into the video, make sure you are subscribed with all notifications turned on, and don't forget to give that video a like if you end up enjoying it. Starting off with WWE 2K14, and we don't have footage for these as the DLC has now been delisted and wasn't purchased before that had happened. But you don't need footage to know that the WWE Superstars and Moves pack was the worst DLC offering in WWE 2K14. And it wasn't because of the moves. No, we love the new moves. That's always great. What made this DLC so bad was the wrestlers that were offered within the pack. In this pack, you would get Fandango, Big E Langston, the Bella Twins, and Summer Rae. It's nothing against them. Obviously, Big E is always a great addition, and there were some solid additions to the lacking women's roster, but when you look at the dates of when everyone either debuted or returned to the WWE, they should have easily made it to the final cut to make the on-disc roster. Especially someone like Big E, who debuted on Raw in late 2012, when the cutoff for the roster around this time was WrestleMania, which was 3 months later. It just felt like these characters were held back purposely to have a DLC pack ready. It would have made much more sense if there was an NXT pack around this time, as this was when NXT was starting to make waves in WWE. And prior to 2K14, you had the big debuts of Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and Dean Ambrose, so it would have made a ton of sense to focus the efforts to the NXT packs back in 2K14 days. We would have to wait until next year with 2K15 until we would start seeing yearly NXT packs. WWE 2K15 features some solid DLC offerings, from the first NXT DLC pack to showcase DLCs based on memorable moments like Christian versus Randy Orton in 2011, Mark Henry's Hall of Pain from 2011 to 2013, and Ultimate Warrior's career. We'd love to see these mini showcase DLCs return one day, by the way. However, while it's hard to label any of these as the worst DLC in 2K15, there was one that didn't make much sense at the time. The Hulk Hogan DLC included with the 2K15 Collector's Edition. This felt like a pointless addition since Hogan was already part of 2K14. Repackaging him as a special DLC that players had to pay for seemed like an attempt to capitalize on Hogan's return to WWE in 2014 after his stint in TNA. For us, this made it the worst DLC offering in WWE 2K15. Moving along to WWE 2K16's DLC, one pack really stands out amongst the offerings: the Hall of Fame Showcase DLC. This was the first year they introduced a Hall of Fame showcase featuring a single match from each of the 2015 Hall of Fame inductees. While this might sound good on paper, the reality was quite different. The match choice left much to be desired and were hardly the best selections they could have made. For example, instead of highlighting one of the Alundra Blaze's best matches, they opted for a dream match where she faced off against Paige. This DLC was a significant step down from the fantastic 2K15 Showcase DLCs, which featured well-crafted rivalries, gimmicks, and career retrospectives. The Hall of Fame Showcase felt thrown together and lacked the same level of care and detail. For us, this makes it the worst DLC in WWE 2K16. WWE 2K17 continued the trend of having Hall of Fame Showcase, but the selection and characters added were much better overall than 2K16's. However, the worst DLC in 2K17 was actually a character pack, the NXT Enhancement Pack. Now, we love NXT packs, but this one, featuring Nia Jax, Shinsuke Nakamura, Apollo Crews, was a complete joke when you consider the full context. These characters should have easily been included in the base game. Initially, the only way to get this pack was by purchasing the much more expensive Collector's Edition, and there were only 3 characters in it. To make matters worse, when sold separately, this was a $10 DLC, significantly pricier than the DLC packs that offered much more content and more characters. It felt like a blatant cash grab aimed at players who didn't buy the Collector's Edition. This easily makes it the worst DLC for 2K17. WWE 2K18's DLC was the first time while making this video that we really had to think hard about what the worst DLC was. To be honest, 2K18's DLC is among one of the better all-around DLC offerings in the 2K series. Everything planned for the game was solid. We saw the return of RVD since 2K15, Batista after missing out in 2K17, and the ECW One Night Stand Arena for the first time since SmackDown vs. Raw days, thanks to the Cena Nuff Pack. Additionally, Kurt Angle finally made his return to the WWE games since SmackDown vs. Raw 2007, with both his 2001 and 2006 versions. Beyond the pre-order Collector's Edition DLC, there was a solid selection of NXT stars and a Legends pack that added the Hardys back into the series for the first time since SmackDown vs. Raw 2010 and 2011. Overall, it was a stellar lineup of DLC for 2K18, making it quite tough to pick a worst one. After carefully reviewing the DLC, we decided on the My Career Booster as being the worst DLC. This choice is a bit of a cop-out because honestly, the DLC for 2K18 was really solid, but considering how lackluster the 2K18's My Career mode was, it deserves a mention of being the worst DLC in WWE 2K18. And like WWE 2K18, WWE 2K19 also boasts a solid selection of DLC, primarily featuring NXT stars that were essential additions to the game. One downside, however, was the lack of legends in the DLC. It focused exclusively on current day talent, with the only legends available being part of the deluxe edition. None of the post-launch DLC focused on legends, which was a bit of a letdown. However, simply not including legends doesn't make it the worst DLC. We had to choose between the two main packs offered. The first pack, called Rising Stars, was excellent, packed with new and even returning superstars. It featured 7 superstars, which is more than the usual 5 per pack. This makes the next pack, Titans, disappointing in comparison. While it included notable names like Bobby Lashley, EC3, Hanson, and Rowe, it offered only 4 superstars at the same $10 price point. Again, like the 2K18 DLC, this one was a really tough one to pick as the DLC overall is solid, and there's no real noticeable bad DLCs. However, due to the lacking of content in the Titans pack, it stands out as the worst DLC in WWE 2K19. WWE 2K20's DLC plans were much different than in the past. Instead of offering new, returning, or legendary characters, the DLC for 2K20 focused on a brand new mode called WWE 2K Originals. There were 4 packs of 2K Originals, each set in its own unique WWE world. The first pack, Bump in the Night, was a horror-themed WWE world featuring creepy and weird versions of WWE superstars. The second pack, Wasteland Wanderers, depicted a post-apocalyptic version of WWE. The third pack, Southpaw Regional Wrestling, was a comedic take on the 80s wrestling with WWE characters, although it wasn't entirely original as WWE had already created this concept. And lastly, Empire of Tomorrow offered a futuristic take on WWE with superstars as robots. The worst of the 4 had to be the Southpaw Regional Wrestling pack. This could have been amazing, as many people enjoyed the goofy Southpaw Regional Wrestling episodes WWE had been producing prior to the DLC. Bringing that to life within WWE 2K could have been a lot of fun. Instead, and perhaps because it was under the Originals banner, WWE 2K felt the need to put their own spin on it by creating characters that didn't even exist in the Southpaw universe. They left out all of the fun. Established characters, or in some cases, only included them in the 2K Original towers without making them unlockable. For these reasons, the Southpaw Regional Wrestling pack is the worst DLC of WWE 2K20. WWE 2K22 might honestly have the best DLC out of any WWE 2K game ever. The DLC offered an amazing mix of rising superstars and legends, featuring many legends who hadn't been seen in a long time, and including Ruthless Aggression era superstars. It was truly the perfect mix, making 2K22 the hardest game to choose a worst DLC for because all of the DLC packs were so well rounded. If we have to pick one, we would go with the Stand Back pack, which included the Hurricane, Stacy Keibler, A-Kid, and Wesley. This pack was great, don't get me wrong, but due to Nash Carter being released from the WWE, he was originally planned to be included in this pack. The pack ended up with the lowest number of superstars among the 5 packs, with only 4 included. This wasn't really 2K's fault, as they likely had to remove the release superstar, but as we said, picking the worst DLC in this game is super difficult. The easiest option is to go with the pack that had the fewest characters, in all honesty. For the first time in a while, there's truly an easy DLC pack to choose as the worst when it comes to WWE 2K23. The worst DLC pack in WWE 2K23 has to be the Bad Bunny pack, which wasn't even announced as a DLC pack prior to the game's release. This pack was a kind of a sprung out of nowhere later in the year and closer to the release of WWE 2K24, making it one of the latest WWE DLCs ever. What made this pack so bad was that it cost $10 and included only 1 character, with a few extras that not many would care about. The full pack contained the Bad Bunny Backlash 23 character, a Bad Bunny Evo My Faction card, a Puerto Rico themed LWO shirt, Bad Bunny's themed My Faction team customizations, and a 15,000 VC pack. All that for $10. Earlier, we mentioned how WWE 2K17 charging for 10 for 3 NXT stars was ridiculous, but this might actually be the worst overpriced WWE 2K DLC ever. And to make it worse, you had to buy this DLC even if you had the season pass. Easily the worst WWE 2K23 DLC. And as of this video going up, the WWE 2K24 DLC offerings are not over yet, but we can already pick the worst DLC of WWE 2K24, the Pat McAfee pack. Now, don't get us wrong, having Pat in the game and as DLC makes sense. He's a commentator and has a number of matches in WWE, no problem there. The issue arises with the fact that this pack includes 4 of his friends whom the majority of WWE 2K players don't know or care about playing as. This honestly just feels like a waste of DLC spots. That's really all that needs to be said. So what WWE 2K DLC did you find to be the worst? Let us know in the comments below, and thanks for watching, everyone.